Hello everyone, welcome to Azure Psych, and today I want to talk about some of the key differences between the INTJ and the ENTJ personality type. Now, if you've been following my channel since, the beginning a few years back, you'll know that the Differences series was one of the series that I started with, where I discussed the differences between certain personality types, especially ones that were very similar. But I thought it might be interesting to kind of remaster some of these videos now that it's been a few years and I have a better perspective on these types and their differences. So with that said, today I just want to give you some quick tips and advice to help you differentiate between an INTJ and an ENTJ, whether you might be one or you're trying to type someone who could be one of these two types. Let's get into it. So, as you might know, both the INTJ and the ENTJ share all of the same cognitive functions: introverted intuition, extroverted thinking, introverted feeling, and extroverted sensing. The main difference being that the INTJ leads with introverted intuition and has secondary extroverted thinking, while it's the opposite for the ENTJ, who has lead extroverted thinking and secondary introverted intuition. So what does this mean for this type? Well, the most important thing to understand when you're looking at the ENTJ and the INTJ is that both of them may have the J on their personality type, but only the ENTJ is a judging dominant or judging lead type. That is because extroverted thinking is a judging function, and this means that they lead with their judging function and are therefore a full-on judging type. With introverted types, the last letter is actually the opposite of what they actually are. So if you're an IJ type, you're actually a perceiving dominant type. If you're an IP type, you're actually a judging dominant type. And therefore, the introverted, intuitive, thinking, judging type, the INTJ, is going to be a perceiving dominant type because they lead with introverted intuition, a perceiving function, while ENTJs are going to be a judging dominant type that lead with extroverted thinking, a judging function. So what does it mean that an ENTJ is a judging dominant type and an INTJ is a perceiving dominant type? Well, it means that on average, the ENTJ is going to be far more decisive in their decision-making process. If you've ever hung around ENTJs or ESTJs, you'll probably see and know these people as some of the most decisive and quick-to-act people that you'll ever meet. They do not spend a whole lot of time thinking through their actions. They are not impulsive. That is not what the ENTJ or the ESTJ or any of the EJs typically are. They're not impulsive. They're just very quick to come to rational conclusions about the things that they are working with or interested in. And this comes back to, them being a judging dominant type and back to rationale. Judging types are rational types, where perceiving types are irrational types. And this means that ENTJs want to come to rational conclusions about the things that they're interacting with as quickly as possible. It's the opposite for the INTJ. The INTJ might appear to be outwardly decisive, but it's more likely that they're going to spend a lot of time processing the decision that they're going to make, and then and only then will they come out of their shell to kind of present that decision, which is what makes them appear like they are decisive to their peers. If you put an INTJ and an ENTJ next to each other and you ask them to both decide on something, I'm willing to bet money that 90% of the time, the ENTJ is going to be the one to decide first, and it's because they prefer that rational conclusion. They prefer to come to conclusions as quickly as possible. Now, this is also going to be the area of growth for both of these types because the ENTJ comes to grow more when they slow down and learn to take in information, learn to take in perceptions about their judgments, while the INTJ grows while doing the opposite, where they're usually taking in information, trying to take in perceptions about something, and then they're slow to act on it. So once they get a little bit quicker about acting on the information that they're perceiving and they don't get stuck in that perception phase, that's when they tend to be at their healthiest. Other major differences in the ENTJ and INTJ type are going to come from their repressed functions. ENTJs have lead extroverted thinking and therefore they have repressed introverted feeling. What is this going to look like for the ENTJ? Well, repressed introverted feeling usually portrays itself as the ENTJ struggling to make decisions that are going to be in alignment with how they morally conceive a situation should be. Or it could essentially be that they just don't have any moral opinion about the situation that they're interacting with. This displays itself a lot with leader-type individuals, bosses. ENTJs and ESTJs end up in leadership positions a lot, and you can see them trying to make the most efficient decision at the expense of any sort of morals tied to those decisions. How do I feel about this? How do the people around me feel about this? Is this in alignment with who I am as a person? Essentially, they can be so results-focused that they can forget to take the moral, ethical, or even emotional side of things into account. INTJs, on the other hand, have repressed extroverted sensing, which is oppositional to their dominant introverted intuition. This is going to present itself as the INTJ typically struggling with their immediate sensory environment, and this can be a few different things within that. They can struggle to notice things around them. They can struggle to maintain or keep up with their immediate sensory environment. They're usually going to be quite clumsy when it comes to relatively hands-on things, unless they have a very specific reason for wanting to do that thing. You'll find that if TE or extroverted thinking is motivated in the extroverted sensing, then they can kind of lose that clumsiness. But overall, you're going to find that INTJs tend to not be the best when it comes to interacting with the physical world. ENTJs, on the other hand, don't really struggle with this. Now, the same can be said, though, of INTJs with their introverted feeling. INTJs typically, when they are in some sort of stress state or they're trying to make some sort of decision that might be difficult, are going to think about the introverted feeling, ethical, moral side of things a little bit more than the ENTJ. Now, this doesn't mean that they're always going to act on it, but it is usually something that is at least processed in their mind and is not ignored. And that's why they tend to take longer as well to think about their decisions. They want to make sure it's going to align with who they are as well as what is the best optimal outcome based on extroverted thinking. And this is why, in general, INTJs and ENTJs tend to have different temperaments when it comes to dealing with stress, anger, and situations. ENTJs are usually going to be more prone to negative emotionality when it comes to stress situations, and that ENTJs might respond with anger or frustration, yelling, more than the INTJ. The INTJ is more likely going to retreat within their own little world, try to escape from the negative situation that they're in until they can find some sort of solution. I rarely see INTJs respond with high emotionality unless they're in a very stressed state or point in their life. Whereas with ENTJs, even in the kind of normal setting when they get frustrated, you can kind of see this frustration rise to the surface far more easily. While this is not representative of all ENTJs and INTJs, and this is really only going to represent those who are kind of at the peak of their potential and health, you'll find that ENTJs at their best are going to be represented by much more of an alpha kind of state, while INTJs tend to be represented more of in a kind of sigma state. And what do I mean by this? Well, I mean that ENTJs tend to be natural leaders of the pack when they are in their healthiest state. They're going to be the ones who want to take up that leadership mantle, that leadership role, and they want to be in charge. They want the kind of almost adoration for being in charge and the things that come alongside that. Now, you'll find that INTJs, on the other hand, usually at their healthiest state, don't really appreciate that same type of thing. And a sigma state is going to be someone who's going to be off on their own, but still relatively dedicated and successful. They almost describe it as the introverted alpha. Now, again, this goes back to the idea that just because you're one of these two types doesn't make you that thing immediately. But I do find that INTJs who are at their absolute healthiest or are at their most innovative, their best in general, are going to be the ones who are going to be off on their own trying to accomplish or achieve some sort of thing. And they're usually going to actually be kind of oppositional to the alpha in some state, because you can find that these two types can really clash with one another if they are oppositional towards the same thing. Since ENTJs and INTJs are both in the gamma quadrant, meaning that they share all of the same functions, a lot of their core values are actually going to be very similar. And you'll find that ENTJs and INTJs, since they're gamma, are going to be relatively selfish in their desires. And what I mean by that is their goals for the future, their NI future goals, tend to be selfish in nature because they go through an FI lens. Now, I think the main key difference you're going to find with how these two types approach their goals can be kind of summarized in a simple differentiation. So I like to say that the ENTJ strives for success through vision, while the INTJ, on the other hand, strives for vision through success. And what does this mean? Well, it means that the ENTJ, having extroverted thinking and extroverted sensing in the conscious extroverted attitude, are usually going to be very success motivated, meaning that they like to have general success and the adoration that comes from that success. And they will achieve this success by using their introverted intuition vision to help them shape a path for where they want to be in life. Now, you'll find on the opposite end of the spectrum with the INTJ that they're more concerned with their personal vision, their NI-FI goals, as opposed to the ENTJ. And they will use their extroverted thinking, extroverted sensing success or position or leadership if need be to get to this vision or accomplish this specific vision. And that's going to be one of the key differences there I find with these two types, is that the ENTJ is typically more success-oriented, while the INTJ is typically more personal goal or vision-oriented. All right, everybody. So those are the key differences that I tend to look for when I'm typing or trying to work with someone who might be an INTJ or ENTJ. I think that those are the things that really stand out the most as differences between those two types. So let me know down in the comment section below, do you think that those are helpful distinctions between the ENTJ and the INTJ? Do you have any other things that you tend to look for when you're trying to type an ENTJ as compared to an INTJ? If so, let me know down in the comment section. Other than that, I would like to remind people that I do have personality typing sessions available at my website, asurapsych.com, if you're interested in working with me to find out what your personality type is and what that means for you. This has been Asura from Asura Psych. Have a good one.